Hey TV fans, hey Trek fans, Board Now back with you. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 4, Episode 1. The episode is called Valles, Marineris. I think I've nailed that title. I'm really impressed with myself. Season premiere, we only now have a season and a half of Strange New Worlds left because season 5, which should be coming out next year, is just going to be 6 episodes. I think they've already filmed that. And this was a really epic season opener. Like, they just nailed the opening here. It's a very Trek feeling episode. It almost dives back into what Trek was originally, with the possibilities of all the time travel and all these like strange new worlds. And it just feels epic on a scale. Like, it looks really cinematic and exciting, and the plot is just working really well and throwing up so many exciting things. But for those of you who didn't catch my season 3 review, I was a bit more mixed on season 3 because I do love this show. It is my favourite modern Trek, and the first 2 seasons I thought were really, really strong, and season 3 was more mixed. I think the quality overall went down a little bit because the first 2 seasons, they had weaker episodes, but I would say there was only like a couple of weaker episodes. And even those episodes had things in them which I liked. The overall average, I think, did dip in season 3, and it felt like it was more a grab bag of things. Like, it didn't feel that overall you had the same kind of structure as the previous 2 seasons. So I'm happy to say I really enjoyed this season finale. It really goes places. It's kind of bonkers in some ways, but I think in all the best ways. Pike has like a new outlook on life, almost like he's made peace with his future. But I think he does have Patel in the back of his mind, but at the moment he's not really talking about her. She does come up later in the episode, however, but this is a very back to basics Trek sort of feeling episode, and the way it opens, because you've got him, Lalon, and also it's Mbenga, who are down on this planet for the 15th time, they say, and it's like the wild west. They're riding horses, dressed as cowboys. Lalon does look fantastic. It's a very different look for her. There's a bit of flirtation between Spock and Naham when she comes back on board. It's like, well, you just like to see me in tire. Let's go back to my quarters. They are officially together now, Spock and Lalon, which I do like. I like that you obviously had a bit of that last season, got together off screen, so you don't really have a big deal made of the fact that they are like a couple now. Maybe not the sort of drama you got with Spock and Trapple. Maybe we will. It still remains to be seen. I do have some critiques about relationship stuff on this show. Like last season, I think they overdid it a bit, and it's one of my pet peeves. Then, especially when you've only got a finite amount of episodes, I don't think you need to have so many, like every character having a relationship, and then you've got to sit through the drama of their relationship. I'm happy enough with the chemistry between Spock and Lalon and their dynamic, and the fact that they both have interest in like past. I wouldn't mind if that's it, then they just have a relationship until the end of the show, and that's kind of it. Like, there's no major drama about it. But this show does like to throw up the drama, so we'll have to wait and see. The other thing with Lalon in this episode, he's worried about, does she have her ancestors' DNA, Khan Noonien seen? Like, is she destined to become a vicious warrior like him? And Chapel checks her over and says, no, you've got nothing to worry about. You may share his blood, but you are very different. So this is something they're going to come back to. They did hint at it last season, and we'll see where it goes. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Leanne is going down that road? Do you think maybe it's going to be a dark ending towards her? Now, I would hesitate. I think it's almost like the most cliche thing you could do is just have her go down the dark path, and I don't know how she would automatically turn evil, because it does seem that she's in control of her own destiny. And I think at this point, because you are quite late into the show, it would be, unless there's a particular reason, it would be unconvincing for her to turn to the dark path. You would have to build that up a lot more. Because this show is quite nostalgic and it's set before the original series, there's probably temptations in the writer's room where you might get Duran going to the dark side, to the other side, and then you naturally have a face-off against Kirk, maybe, because you've already had a bit of a vibe between her and Kirk in the show. It just feels to me, apart from the fact that they haven't given themselves that much time to do that, it feels also that would be, like I said, the most cliche thing you can do, and maybe the dullest thing you could do. Definitely up for exploring a little bit more of her roots and her past, and maybe she does wrestle with this stuff a bit, but I'm not really that keen on them going down that path. Speaking of relationships, as I did a minute ago, there seems to be at least teasing us that there could be a thing between Erica and Scotty. And there's some nice banter between them in this episode, because apparently Scotty has been getting on the Taiga about her flying skills and her engineering skills, and he's really been ripping on her, and Erica's been firing back a little bit. And there's a really funny line later in the episode where, yes, dinosaurs are in this episode, guys. It's the fact that he uses the word laddie, but don't want to... Yeah, Scotty says you don't want to kill the laddies. And Erica's like, the laddie must be a wee bit stronger than you thought. And I do love the banter between these two. It's a way to open up Scotty's character as well, because so far he's been good. He's been a decent, younger version of Scotty, but he's also just been this kind of nerdy, meek, sort of nervous, quite type of guy, he has some pretty good one-liners, but that's been about it. So the banter with Erica at least opens him up a little bit more. Comedy has always been one of Erica's strong suits, so I'm in favour of more of that stuff. I just don't want them to go down a relationship path, and I'm a little worried with this show than they probably will. I don't think it's needed. I don't think everyone has to have a relationship. It also just feels like a go-to for certain shows that, well, maybe just to give the characters a little bit more to do, you just give them a relationship. Refreshing if they just had this banter and a little bit of a playful back and forth, and they just ended up being quite good friends that rag on each other. That would be the more interesting thing for them to do, and you still add into their characters that way. A new cadet on the ship who's in training, and I think she's Vulcan, but she has a particular way of being brought up, and she disapproves of Uhura's way of doing things, and is very snooty about them. And I wonder if that's almost like an in-universe joke, because one thing that old school Trek fans kind of rag on this show about is just how casual they all are on the bridge. Pike's a very casual captain, and how it doesn't seem as professional as the past Trek shows did. He notices it, and she almost speaks for those hardcore older school Trek fans. So just little character touches here. But to dive into the main plot, Commander April gives Pike one last mission before he must decide on if he's going to accept his promotion. So the mission is that they're meant to go and retrieve this iridium from a crashed ship. But it turns out they go through a meteor field. So many times in this show they go through a meteor field. I'm not complaining this time because it looks fucking amazing, everyone. As I said, this episode is really cinematic and well directed, and in general the modern Trek do look really good. This episode is one of the best looking I've seen so far, and there's a really cool ship effect where it goes upside down where they're going through this meteor field. Yeah, they really used the production budget very well in this episode. They end up 68 million years in the past, and one of the catches about that is it's before Starfleet has even come into existence, so they're not at the same advantage as if they were in the present, or even just a little further back where Starfleet would have some sort of mandate. And this episode does a really good job of using time travel and the rules of time travel, the fact that you can't really alter the past because then it impacts on the future. And it's something they have to wrestle with, the dilemma of this episode. They're in the dinosaur era, and they end up, Una, Laran, and Erica, they end up on this planet where they have to retrieve this iridium. But the catch is, and they build to this, they're teasing you. I think after a certain point, you're probably going to get what it is, where they are, because of just some of the small shots they give you. But they're like, okay, this thing is blocking us. And it turns out dinosaurs are blocking them. And again, they have this dilemma of, can we kill the dinosaurs? Like, is that going to alter the future? And some of the moral aspects. So it's bringing up some of the classic Trek themes of, is it right to kill these things in the first place? You know, they're living, breathing creatures. So it's bringing up like animal rights stuff as well. But this is what I mean. And the way the episode ends just confirms this too. Just what a beautiful episode it is, and how cinematic and lush it is. Because the very ending, which is very positive, is you literally have one last shot of them looking out on this planet and at these dinosaurs, and what turned into something where it's like, oh my god, we've got to get past these dinosaurs, they could kill us. In the earlier scenes, really it turns into like almost like the wonder of Spielberg and Jurassic Park. It's like that thing of, these things are deadly and dangerous, but they're also really beautiful, and there's a spectacle here, and you're seeing something very unique, and something which people in the future, apart from recreations and models, they have no idea about, and they could never experience. So I think this really is a classic Star Trek episode, where it's really getting into the DNA of Star Trek really well with this stuff. Some fun antics down on the planet with the dinosaurs. I like Una calling them Flipper. Una has a good episode this episode, and then debating if they can stun them. Basically, they come to the conclusion that they can't really kill them because it's altering the future once again. So they stun them. Like, it's literally, is it Laran? I think it's Laran gets like just slaps it. Like, it's a smaller one, gives it a little slap just to get it away, because it's after they've already stunned a bigger one. So just gives it like a smack, which is, it's one of those moments where it could feel a bit too cheesy and a bit like, well, you're taking me out of this. But probably because it's a smaller dinosaur, I think it works really well. Pike and the others start to learn what's happening, and they get dragged along by this other ship, and they're like, well, who are they? Why are they dragging us along? We're introduced to the commander of the other ship, Castle, who's played by Saffron Burrows. And Saffron Burrows is an actress I don't normally like. I sort of find her very wooden and one note, and a lot of times I just don't think she has a very interesting personality, and a lot of characters she plays just tend to switch my brain off, because she either plays like very sexy, bossy characters, or like where there's a little bit of a villain, but it's like almost like a pantomime villain, or she just plays characters that are just like love interests and don't really have a lot going on. And I didn't even realise it was Saffron Burrows, but she's pretty good. I quite like her in this episode, and Castell's a standout guest star. I thought her vibes was really good. Like, she was a convincing antagonist, but also an antagonist where you could see her point of view, and Burrows did a pretty nice job with her. Like, she had a certain way of talking and was quite effective and well done, and it never felt too OTT. Like, you just got a sense of what the character was experiencing and where she was coming from. So she reveals that they're in the middle of a war. They just assumed them Pike and crew were on the other side, and it's almost that thing of we're not taking any risk. So Pike has to use some classic Star Trek diplomacy. Well, we've got some weapons that could help you, but you've got to work with us. You've got to release us first. And he's basically bluffing. And at first they seem to agree to that arrangement, but then they go back on it because they noticed in the docking bays they've got like some beryllium, and they decide to take it. It's like, well, this is the weapon that could win us the war, and they just go crashing through and take it. And it's, you know, as I said, Castell's quite an interesting character. Back and forth between her and Pike is really interesting. Also, she reads that Pike is a recent widower. So that's the thing. Now that's interesting, and that's the one moment in the episode where Pike gets reminded of Battelle and is a little bit wounded. And yeah, she runs off and she says, well, sorry, we can't wait for the future to unfold. We're living in the present. We've got to try and win the war in the present. I've got to do what's best for my people and my crew, just like you have to do for your crew. That's a big theme in the episode about almost, do you live in the current? Like, do you just fix the problem at hand and just do anything to survive? So it's almost very Starfleet in many ways, but you can understand where Castell is coming from, and you don't know what the future's going to bring, and it's a long way off anyway, like Starfleet being created. And it's one way you can see pros and cons either way. It just makes Castell a little bit more underhanded because she made a deal with Pike and then went back on it. It would be a bit more respectful if she just did it to his face.
So you're benevolent until that no longer works, and only then are you hostile? It's a strategy of sorts.
I'm happy to say we have no issues of contamination.
You clearly dedicate many resources to this medical facility. Frankly, it's something of a wonder to see so few occupied beds or injuries. Captain Pike, perhaps I have been too quick to judge you and your crew. It appears you are not the enemies we perceived you to be. Appearances can be deceiving. Do you have this saying too? Take me to your weapon systems, and then I may better understand what this alliance with its many points of view and carrots and sticks has to offer. What is the main purpose of your science station? Is it to assess the vulnerability of potential enemies? A crater and 2 million lives is the price we paid.
That's horrible.
That's why your discussions of cultures, of science, although kind and hopeful, are not relevant. What we need to do is destroy the doldrum before they devour the rest of our planet and turn it all into a red wasteland.
Well, have you ever tried communicating with the doldrum?
We cannot. They are insects. They do not speak or reason as we do. They simply feed and move forward.
You may have other options.
Some on our planet argued this. They believed there were other ways to deal with them. As they talked, we died. There's only one thing that's ever worked. force.
What if we could offer you something that would work without weapons? Something only Starfleet's resources can provide.
The Federation have met maybe 65 different insectoid species. Of those, 17 of them don't use sonic communication, like us.
This is where xenoanthropology helps. We've been able to design multiple systems that work for creatures who communicate using light, touch, or in one particularly difficult case, smell, which stunk. But it did allow us eventually to speak with them.
Fascinating.
The dilemma of whether Pike allows Castle and her crew to destroy the other planet. And at first they're going to stop them. Now Spock figures out that they can use the blast to transport them back home. And in the end, Pike allows it to go ahead, allows them to blast the planet. And you kind of get a blast back. So their ship is pretty much destroyed in the blast back. But it's a decent bit of science, like Spock figuring this out, then it can propel them home also. As Pike is really wounded by this, like he's upset. He says, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I was wrong. I'm responsible for all this. Because it's revealed later, again, a little bit of twinking with history. Obviously, because it's Star Trek, but like it's revealed later than that blast is the thing that led to the dinosaurs being extinct. I think that's why they ended with that gloriously beautiful like scenery end, because it's like, well, here's the positives, even though they are no more now. It turns out then they were supposed to do that. They were supposed to just let things play out and not get involved in any case. Like that was what the future had in store for them. And so it's almost this bittersweet thing, because it did lead to lives being lost and some destruction, and it's kind of bittersweet for Pike, but they put a spin on it where it's more positive, because it's just the way things were meant to play out. You weren't supposed to get involved. Anson Mount does some good acting in that scene, but Mbenga reveals to him later, because he took some DNA samples from Castle and her crew. It turns out then in the future her race does survive, so Castle might have died but her race lived on. So that's another little shot in the arm for Pike as well. So it's a really good episode with Strange New Worlds, probably because they do have a finite amount of episodes. They are doing this thing where they're playing with the different gimmicks and coming up with some unusual things. This one just hits a sweet spot, I think, because it does feel in flavour with some classic Trek. And the dilemma that Pike has in this episode and the time travel stuff definitely feels in tune with classic Trek, and it feels that they just nailed that stuff really well. I think my only complaint with the episode is then when they're explaining some of this stuff, they over-explain it, and it does come down to, at times you're making it more complicated than it needs to be, where you're adding layer upon layer upon layer. So that's probably my small nitpick with it, but the actual gimmick of the episode I think works really well. It feels that it shouldn't work, but it just works really, really well, and it's a really exciting episode. It's definitely a good one to open a season on, because it does have that epic sort of feel. It's quite high stakes, but there's a sense of fun and adventure to it. That's Strange New Worlds. It's off to a really good start for the season. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. You can share me out on social media. You can also support me, patreon.com/borednow, or you can become a channel member at 3 different tiers. You just hit that join them button and also hit the hype button, so that gets me out to that gets me out to more people on YouTube, I should say. Said that the wrong way around. You can make a one-off donation, super thanks, or you can make a one-off donation at my PayPal account. But thanks everyone. I'm going to return soon with more Strange New Worlds, and also I'm going to be digging into some 60s Trek as well, so look out for those reviews as well. Thanks everyone. I've been bored now. Keep watching Star Trek. See you soon. Bye guys.
I have many things I want to talk about. Hopes. Dreams. Fears. I believe you are here so I can share them with you.
You, more than anyone that I know, have thought about the past and the future a great deal. But most of us live in the now.
Perhaps what happens next will define everything.
Where are you sending us?
Well, this is a fun one. I know what we are about to do is hard.
There is never any reason to do something alone when you need help.
There's too much at stake.
The SOS was a trap.
Everyone out now.
We need to get off this ship. Everybody, hang on to something. Anything. Everything.
Let's save this ship and our friends.
You are facing the finest crew in Starfleet, and they will be able to fight back in ways you cannot imagine.
We've seen a lot of strange new worlds. But we'll never see something like this again.
Don't worry, Spock. I'm sure one day you'll get to aim that logical mind of yours at some lucky captain.